What's up, y'all? I'm Frosty, and today we have another, other than Dr. Voodoo, we've got another new character coming to Marvel Strike Force, and that is Morbius, the Living Vampire. So personally, I feel like the way they've brought in Morbius is a little odd. And we'll kind of get into that here in a second. But Morbius is a cool character, been in the Spider-Man Rogue Gallery for a while. So yeah, let's just dive right in. Hello, YouTube, says Sin. What's up, YouTube? You better subscribe, bro. Thank you, Quick Renzo. All right, Morbius the Living Vampire, named Dr. Michael Morbius. So we've got a lot of doctors, Doctor Strange, Dr. Voodoo, and stuff like that. Most of them have the doctor in their hero name, but Morbius decided to go against it. He just goes with his last name. So Morbius the Living Vampire, first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 101. So powers and abilities. So there's a couple really important things to note about Morbius. Number one is that Morbius is not a vampire. Okay? Hear me out. So he's not a vampire. So in Marvel Strike Force, they brought him in as a mystic character. Right? So Morbius was born with a blood disease, and he became a hematologist, and he studied animal and human biology because he was trying to cure his own disease. So in Marvel Strike Force, in the blog post said it, in messing with vampire bat DNA, made a serum that turned him into what he sees. So Morbius was already deformed and stuff, but then he turned him into so the species is called a living vampire. So he never died, and a vampire in the Marvel universe, it's weak to garlic, it's weak to holy symbols, it's weak to silver, it's weak to all sorts of stuff. A living vampire has none of those weaknesses except for their hunger. Right, so the more hungry that Morbius is, the more mad he goes, the more crazy he goes, and he freaks out. So Morbius, especially in the current comics, when he first came out, was more of a villain all the time, especially if you watch like the Spider-Man animated series, but he's redeemable, right? So he's a little bit more on the Venom side, where you see him kind of go both ways. He's only really evil when he's starving. Right, so he kind of turns his thing kind of like Venom, where he only feeds on bad guys. Right, so we've got him at the villain trait, which is okay. I can see it. I mean, like Venom kind of deserves a villain trait. Morbius can have the villain trait, but Mystic, as far as true vampires go, which is what they're called in the Marvel universe, true vampires, they are a mystic construct. As far as Morbius is evil when starving, pretty normal to me. Absolutely, Rolf. That's hilarious. But so true vampires are mystic, but Morbius turned himself into this vampire by biological means. He has a run-in with Lilin later, and that's where he gets his mystic powers and becomes more strong. But namely, he really should be a bio character, but the argument for mystic is there. Aliases, Morgan Michaels and Nikos Michaels. So his name is Michael Morbius. He goes under different names because he only goes by Morbius the Living Vampire, really, but when he's acting as a scientist or a biologist or whatever, he'll typically grab different names that are amalgamations of his friends and his own name, obviously the Michaels, just to kind of hide within plain sight so that he can kind of operate as a doctor and knock out, whatever, try to cure things and stuff like that. He's a big guy about curing diseases. Even that's one of my problems with the villain trait, is that he actually is he has a lot of philanthropist type things where he actively is trying to cure a lot of diseases, including his own blood disease. Affiliations: Midnight Suns, Armor, Legion of Monsters, and Shield. Midnight Suns is it's kind of a rotating rep of people, but typically it's 9 magic users that have come in contact with Lilith. So he is part of that. That includes Dr. Voodoo, that includes Doctor Strange, Scarlet Spider, and Bats, who is a astral, what is it? Beagle. He's a beagle. He's a little dog. Armor is another one of those government-affiliated acronym types. Legion of Monsters. This is essentially Avengers of just monsters. And most monsters, so like Man-Thing, Morbius. Just if they look like monsters and then they have hero tendencies, Legion of Monsters. And then of course Shield, who we all know who Shield is, right? Background: Grecian. He was born in Greece and migrated to the United States because of his sickness to try to be able to study. He has a rare blood disease. Human and animal biology is what he studied, and he became a hematologist, so he's a medical doctor. So he moved from Greece to New York to get his he actually got his start in Greece. He learned all this stuff in Greece, and then when he became a vampire, he moved to New York, not only for better resources, but he had more of a feeding ground. So there's that. So the living vampire. So I've talked about this a little bit already. The living vampire by biological and non-mystical means. Period. He essentially invented the living vampire. Right? Has all the advantages of a vampire, but none of the disadvantages, minus the hunger for blood. Right? So he legitimately only gets hungry. He can go out during the day. It only hurts his eyes. Right? It doesn't. He doesn't get hurt. He wears sunglasses and he just kind of walks outside. He has no problems there. For those of you who keep up with like Marvel vampires and stuff like that, that is a big problem because the Marvel vampires are more traditionally vampires, right? So they have mystical means where they turn into smoke or they burst into flames, garlic, holy symbols, things like that. Morbius has none of those issues, right? So he is not a vampire. He's vampire adjacent. And this is important because of his progeny, right? So relationships. So I talk about relationships all the time, like some of the people that you can see kind of going with him. Martine Bancroft, fiance, she is a true vampire. So he gets engaged. They fall in love. She wants to be with him forever. He won't turn her. I don't even think he knows he can turn people at this point. And so she seeks out actual vampires so that she can live forever with Morbius. Morbius has no proof that he doesn't age, but he says he doesn't age like a vampire. So she becomes a true vampire just to stay with him. Spider-Man, ex-rival / ally. They are very buddy-buddy, and Spider-Man always approaches Morbius with some caution just in case he's hungry. Actually, in the current run of Amazing Spider-Man, there was a run-in with Ben O'Reilly Spider-Man and Morbius. And it all has to do with hunger, right? So, but anyway, so ex-rival / ally. They were part of the Rogues Galleries to becoming somebody that's run to because of all these things. So one of the things about the living vampire is it seems like there's different effects with different types of blood. So Morbius likes to drink people's bloods like Spider-Man because it'll have an effect on it. He may turn normal for so long, or like he drinks, I believe, the lizard's blood and he turns normal for so long. Right, it has different effects on him, unlike other vampires. So that's another difference between him and a regular vampire. Emil Nikos. So if you noticed before, he went by Nikos Michael as one of his aliases. Nikos is his best friend who was with him while he was trying to cure his blood disease, and that's when he first became a vampire. And automatically having that hunger, he kills his best friend. So quite a tragic backstory. When he finally becomes a vampire, when he first becomes a vampire, tries to cure himself, he ends up killing his best friend, and that haunts him all the way through the comics. Okay, so these next two are his progeny. These are people that he's converted to living vampires. There is not a long list, okay? Because the way it typically works is he drains them till they die. So these people, in this situation, these are people he essentially fought, and then they became vampires because they didn't die. Right, so Victor Slaughter is vampiric progeny. He fought. I mean, it's really that's it. He fought. He ended up fighting Morbius and became a vampire. Hunger, who's more famous kind of vampire. So these are rogues you see with Blade, but they come up with Morbius because Blade and Morbius cross paths all the time as well. So with Hunger is also vampiric progeny, but it's only assumed that it's Morbius's because. Essentially, Morbius and Hunger, they're fighting. This is before Hunger is Hunger. They're fighting, and like a building collapses on him. And the next time you see Hunger, he seems like he has vampiric qualities. So it's kind of assumed that he's a living vampire. So they're more than likely he's the progeny of Morbius. We see Victor Slaughter become a vampire via Morbius. So notable events. So what I was talking about before with this hero thing. In Marvel Zombies 4, the Legion of Monsters kind of come together, and they work to find the cure for the zombie disease. So that's what I was saying. Morbius has more hero traits than villain, especially in modern comics. back in the day. So I feel like the Morbius they put in was old, but they used Mystic, which is more current, just for convenience sake. I don't know. But anyway, so he is actually the one who finds the cure to the zombie formula in the zombie verse of Marvel. So typically I stick to Marvel 616, which is sort of like the Nexus Earth, if you will, the main line. But I wanted to point out that the world is saved by Michael Morbius, really, in zombies, because I believe, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I read it, living vampire ends up being immune to the zombie disease, so that's cool. And then it's increasing hunger. So as comics have gone on, as I said before, when Morbius drinks different people's blood, he has different effects that happen to him, different things that kind of occur within him. So when as the comics have been moving forward, he has slowly gotten a problem where his hunger gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So it's been driving him, and since he's been more of a hero recently, he's been having this big teeter-totter thing where he's really got to try to keep up with his hunger, which other vampires don't typically see this, but it's namely because of his altering of biology over and over and over and over, or it could just be the fact that he is this living vampire creature that we don't necessarily know how that works long-term. So, I like to finish these off with a power level, right? So, power level, this is the way I do my power levels. Multiversal means you can destroy your universe or other universes. You can essentially end existence as we know it. Universal means you could just do your universe and maybe move to another one and take that one out as well. Cosmic, that's planetary destruction. You can destroy planets at will. Nuclear, that is destroying something the size of a city. So, large blast, what have you. City is, city, so that's a city level hero, so somebody who could essentially take out a brick wall and not flinch, right? And then Greg is the undead Asgardian that Hela spawns in Marvel Strike Force. I have a good chance of taking out Greg, so Greg's more or less a regular person. So with, Morbius, you typically see him dwelling in the city level. He fights with city heroes, but with his mystic capabilities and his abilities to affect diseases, different sicknesses and stuff like that, I would argue that his power level is nuclear because he has a wider effect than outside of the city, right? So maybe not physically, he is physically strong enough for the city level. Power strength feats ranging around 1,500 pounds, okay, says the internet. But his effect goes out past that. The way he runs as a hero, as a villain, he is a bigger threat than just the run-of-the-mill, mafia member or whatever. So my argument, he's sort of in between city and nuclear, but nuclear is kind of where I ended up at. All right, y'all. That was Frosty Features Morbius. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe below, and come hang out with me on Twitch. It's at FrostyOsty0232. I stream every Sunday, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to try to expand that moving forward. But let me know in the comments if you're excited on Morbius' arrival to Marvel Strike Force, or if I got something right, if I got something wrong down below. But thank you so much for watching, and stay cool, y'all.